again. This is Dr. B in the studio, BES Productions in the heart of West Memphis. We have our interviewee, Alan Steele, on the line, and evidently we just had to reboot the system, and hopefully we don't have any more trouble. So we finna bring him on. How you doing, Alan?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Just glad to have you in the studio today uh, on the broadcast. It's just awesome to have you here. Uh,
Well, I
this was
appreciate it, man. You be all
this
right?
was an interesting thing getting this thing to cooperate and see what was going on. But Alan, what we want to do now that we got everything working, we're getting just a tad bit of feedback. Could you turn down just a little bit? And
Is that better?
much better. And what we
Okay.
want to do is we want to know if you can kind of give everyone a brief understanding of you as a wrestler. How'd you get involved, and just what you want people to know initially about you before we get into our discussion.
Okay. Um, well, as far back as I can remember,
Hmm.
I've been a humongous wrestling fan.
Right.
Born and raised Memphis, Tennessee.
Hmm.
So all the greats, the Mid-South Coliseum on Monday
Right.
nights. Um, every Saturday morning, I was glued in front of the television watching the Jerry Lawlers, the Bill Dundees, the Fabulous Ones, Rock and Roll Express, everybody.
Right.
Um, so when I when I turned 21, I said I want to try it. I want to give this thing a shot. I was a
Right.
huge fan. I wanted to
Hmm.
see if I could do it. It was a dream of mine, and I decided to chase that dream. And
Hmm.
so at the time, there was a company called Power Pro Wrestling on Channel 5 every
Okay.
Saturday morning. So I tried a few avenues trying to find somebody to train me.
Right.
And so I had hit a couple dead ends. So I finally wrote the TV studio. I wrote them a letter, and I
Right.
just asked them if the company had a wrestling school. And so they replied really fast, which I was surprised, or I figured they, throw it in the trash or whatever.
Right.
Uh, but they replied and they gave me Bill Dundee's phone number.
Hmm.
And so I called Bill Dundee, and probably within the next month, I was training every Wednesday night,
Wow.
either going to Jackson, Tennessee, or going to McKenzie, Tennessee, every Wednesday night and training with a lot of the guys that were already on television.
Right.
So Bill Dundee was there. He's my mentor. And fast forward 25 years, and I know I've had thousands of matches. Um, and I mean, it's something, it's like an addiction, man. I don't know what I would, do without it, honestly.
Right. That's one of the things I was going to ask you. Do you still have the same fire that you had when you first began?
I don't know if it's as strong,
Hmm.
but it's very strong. Um, Instead of it being constant, now
Hmm.
there's kind of, it kind of fades and it grows.
Right.
Uh, but it's still, I'm still very passionate about it,
Hmm.
especially with the training that we do now, which I'm sure we'll get
Right.
into here in a little bit.
Hmm.
Very passionate about that. But yeah, I mean, besides family, closest of friends, it's the number one on my totem pole is wrestling.
Wow. So
Yeah.
let me ask this: Who would you say out of all the wrestlers, no matter what, they in the WWE or whatever, who is your favorite wrestler and why?
Um, that's an easy one. My favorite wrestler of all time is Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
Wow.
He, he was just Kurt Hennig for years and years and years.
Hmm.
That's who Jerry Lawler beat for the AWA World Championship at
Right.
the Mid South Coliseum. Uh, but there was something about him when they introduced him as Mr. Perfect in the WWF. they did a lot of video packages of him doing these ridiculous things as far as sports and stuff go. Like he could do
Right.
no wrong. He was hitting hole in ones on the golf course. He was hitting half court shots on the
Right.
basketball court. They
Hmm.
did one where he threw himself a touchdown on the football field from end zone to end zone. He threw it and
Right.
ran down there and caught it. Um, so he was bowling strikes in the bowl. I mean, he just couldn't miss.
Right.
And then when he wrestled, he was just so confident in himself that, well,
Right.
he crossed over the line. He was cocky, but he had so much confidence, and like his self-esteem was through the roof.
Right.
And just the way he did things was different than everybody else. And it really
Hmm.
just stuck out. And I was drawn to him immediately. But he's a great wrestler.
Looking at wrestling and everything that people go through, I think wrestling is just as tough as football or any of these other sports. Some people think is not, but I can imagine just going through that and running and getting slammed and slamming folks. And you had to have a high threshold of pain, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. The thing about it is, like, comparison of, say, any other sport, football included, to wrestling, we don't have an off season.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's right.
we
Yeah.
wrestle 52 weeks a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So where a football season, once the Super Bowl's over, they get to
Hmm.
go chill out for a couple months, heal up, and all that stuff. Well, there's a lot of times that we tape it up and go. I mean,
Hmm.
you have to do it. The show must go on.
Right.
Um, it is very physical, and depending on who your opponent is, it's very, very physical.
Right.
Um, but there's nothing quite like it, man. That I think if it wasn't as physical as it is, the adrenaline level wouldn't go quite as high as it does, you know?
Hmm.
So that's part of it. Hit me, I'm gonna hit you, and let's go out here and make this money.
Ah, have you ever been hit so hard you wanted to just throw in the towel for that match?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, we were talking about this guy the other day. There used to be a guy around this area called Black Dragon,
Hmm.
and he had to hit harder than anybody I've ever been in the ring with.
Right.
And I remember I only wrestled him one time,
Hmm.
and that was enough. He hit me in places you not want to be hit very
Right.
hard. And
Right.
so I remember trying to stay away from him and out wrestle him and not really punch and kick with him too much
Hmm.
because he was throwing everything in all his. So yeah,
Right.
I've been hit a few times and made me, think maybe I should be a referee instead, but I'm still doing it.
Let me ask you this, okay? What did you prefer as a wrestler, to be the villain or the hero? Which,
Oh man,
or it depends on the
I,
situation.
not with me. I want to be the villain
Really?
100% of the time.
Wow.
Um, it's something, and I guess I've got kind of a messed up sense of humor, so I guess maybe it plays with that. But something about getting a building full of people to boo you or throw stuff at you,
Right.
or I mean, I've had people try to pay the promoter to let them fight me.
Really?
I've had people throw food, drinks. Um, I I had a guy pull a knife on me before.
Are you serious?
So, oh
Wow.
yeah, yeah. But it's something about that
Hmm.
that when you go back through the curtain,
Right.
if you get that kind of reaction from the people, you know you've done your part. You've done more than your
Wow.
part if you get that kind of reaction. But being
Wow.
the villain is 100% better than being the hero for sure.
So the villain is the good side if you really want people to just hate your guts.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess
Um,
they hate your guts.
I,
That's
you
when
know,
they remember you.
yeah, they definitely remember you. I'm naturally kind of sarcastic with my sense of humor.
Hmm.
So that just, I think it just leans me towards, going down that path more so than kissing babies and shaking hands and, all of that stuff. So,
Let me ask this: would you prefer to wrestle as a tag team wrestler, or would you prefer to wrestle singles, and why?
um, well, the wrestling business is really kind of steers towards the singles wrestlers. You know,
Mhm.
the Hulk Hogan's are always on top, or Andre the Giant. It's always that single person.
Right.
But and I always wanted to be that. But let me tell you,
Mhm.
man, there's something about tag team wrestling that I just am in complete love with. If you see my banner over my head here,
Yeah, that's what
this
I
is
was
my
just getting
second
ready
cousin.
to ask.
Yeah, this is my second cousin right here, Mr.
Okay.
Saturday Night Michael Berry, and
Hmm.
that's me this way. All that Alan Steele, and
Right.
together we were genetic perfection
Right.
because we're related, and again goes back to being a big fan of Mr. Perfect. But yeah, something about the tag team thing, especially as the villain,
Hmm.
because we can maneuver that referee, and play chess with the referee and use them to get advantage of the good guys or use them
Right.
to really make the crowd mad, and then
Right.
they'll start telling on us and being tattletales and all that stuff. So I love tag team wrestling. Plus, it's four people there, so you got an opportunity of being more action packed for the fans too.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're there for the fans. So if we can give them four people really, busting our butts to have them talking about it when they go home, then
Right.
they really appreciate it too. Yeah.
So, did you ever get the chance to wrestle your tag team partner?
Yes, actually. So here's the story. We were wrestling for a company called Traditional Championship Wrestling, based
Hmm.
in Arkansas. They did a lot of stuff, uh, just all over, but like Fort
Hmm.
Smith, up close to that end of the state. They did a lot of
Right.
shows up that way. And the first time um, that I actually met Michael Berry
Hmm.
was at one of these events, and he was my opponent.
Right.
And so we wrestled, and when it was over with, I actually found him and asked him if he would be willing to be my tag team partner
Right.
because he wrestled a lot like I do.
Hmm.
And when I realized that during the match, I was like, I don't really want to fight this guy. I would much rather fight with this guy than against
Right.
this guy. Plus, he
Hmm.
was bigger and stronger than me, so I was like, I'd rather him have my back than be punching me in the face. So, but yeah, that and then after that, we mentioned it to the owner of the company, and he was trying to do something with his tag team division anyway, and
Hmm.
so we kind of jumped in there and hit the ground running, man, and it was awesome.
I had somebody ask me to ask this question. Sometimes in a wrestling match, it 'cause some people say it's true, some people say it's not. The blood. Does blood be real?
Blood, though, so the blood's real, the chairs are real. This is the stuff we get asked if fake all the time.
Right.
The tables are real.
Right.
Those bamboo sticks, those kendo sticks, those are real. But the blood, absolutely. I don't have a nose that's shaped like this from birth. It's been punched a lot, and so it's been laid over to the side, broken, blood running down my chin.
Mhm.
I got hit in the top of the head one time with a garbage can, one of those
Wow.
metal
The
aluminum
metal
ones,
ones?
and it cut me. And your scalp bleeds big time. So
Right.
it was running down my face. Um, I've got a can't see it now, but I've got a scar on my forearm where I hit a ring post and it just popped open and blood was running down. But as far as the blood being real, absolutely. I've heard people say we use ketchup, blood capsules,
Right.
uh, food coloring, all this type of stuff. But no, if you see blood, then I mean, every match I've ever been in with their blood, I can tell you it's real blood. I can tell you that much for sure.
Woo. Yeah, because I had been asked before if uh, if the blood was real or if they used capsules and stuff like that. And sometimes it looked like it would have been too hard to be fake blood, the way stuff
Right.
happens. So it's like uh, I thought since she was going to be on here today, I'd ask that question because
Yeah. Hey,
that
I've heard it before.
I bet you get a lot of questions like that.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this: what kept you from giving up? Because wrestling you got to have a lot of endurance to wrestle. When you think about folks running around, bouncing off ropes and everything else, jumping off, falling on folks, man, you ever think about just giving it up for?
Well, I did. I gave myself a kind of a deadline.
Hmm.
I said I was going to wrestle to a certain age,
Hmm.
and then I was done.
Right.
And I tried. Honestly, I tried. I sat at home. I stopped traveling. Um, I quit putting all the miles on my car. Driving 2, 3 states over, and then turn around driving back after the event or whatever. I
Hmm.
tried to stay away. I really did. But there's just something, like I said, it's like an addiction. It just
Hmm.
keeps, it pulls at you. And I mean, not to mention that majority of the people who I consider friends in my life,
Hmm.
I met through being in wrestling.
Hmm.
So if I'm still away from it, and then I call my buddy Derek,
Right.
and I'm like, "Hey man, what you doing?" "Oh man, about to head over here to such and such company," and I'm like, "He's still doing it. I should
Right.
still be doing it too." So now I've cut way back, to be honest with you. I don't wrestle nearly as much as I used to.
Hmm.
But yeah, it I wanted to give up. I got hurt one time, and I was like, well, maybe this is the sign. And I've been to a lot of chiropractor visits,
Right.
and now, I mean, I can get done talking to you today, and I can go jump in the ring, and I'm ready to go. I mean, I'm back to where it doesn't matter. I could just jump in the car, make a phone call, go, hey, you got a spot for me? They're like, yeah, come on, and I'll head down to Boonville, Mississippi, or you
Right.
know, yeah, anywhere. So, but yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of goes through it, especially like you said, because I started training when I was 21, and
Hmm.
I said when I hit 40, I was done.
Right.
Well, I'm 45 and I'm still doing it. So I guess either I can't keep my word to myself, or
Right.
it's just the addiction stronger than I really thought it was. So, but yeah, no, I still love it, man.
That's good to have a passion for it and been in it with 20, 25 years and you still love it. What about the coaching aspect of it? How do you like coaching?
Man, it's really awesome actually. So cheap plug for the wrestling school. If
Hmm.
anybody wants to train or get more information, they can go to Wrestle Center, WRESTLECENTER
Hmm.
901.com. Um, and there's a form they can fill out if they're interested in learning or get more information to train and all that. Or if they want to take a tour of the facility, they can do that too. Um, I really enjoy it. I was telling one of the guys the other day that I find it that it's our responsibility to pass on our knowledge to
Hmm.
these younger people that are wanting to get into the wrestling business and kind of follow the footsteps that we've already done.
Hmm.
And so we pride ourselves in teaching them the right way, because
Right.
there's a lot of people who train people who probably weren't trained themselves. So the,
Hmm.
the people that come in below them aren't getting proper training.
Right.
But I mean, we were trained by the old school, Bill
Right.
Dundee. You don't get, as far as Memphis goes, it was Jerry Lawler then Bill Dundee. I mean,
Right.
those top two guys. And so you don't get much more old school than Bill Dundee. And so he taught us the right way, not just how to do stuff, but when and why and where during a match, that type of thing. Um, and so we're passing it on, man. We got a good group of I want to say kids because I feel like I'm so much older than everybody in the class.
Right.
But good group of trainees, students, whatever you want to call them. And I mean, not everybody can do it. If everybody
Right.
could do it, everybody would be doing it. And
Right.
so we've got a few people that have come and gone already, but we've got some in there that are really sticking to it and are really chasing and pursuing their dream, man. And it I like to. It really motivates me to see them improve.
Right.
So when I see them doing something, like if they had a bad habit and we fix that, then it's like, here, here's your gold star. I feel like a teacher
Mhm.
for real. Uh, but it's amazing, man. Like, and you see it brings confidence out in people. Like when I started wrestling, I was super shy. I couldn't stand
Really?
up in front of people and talk. I
Wow.
couldn't. Like I remember in school, we had to give speeches or read in front of the class, and I
Right.
was like, no, not me. And when I started wanting to,
Ah,
when I wanted to do the wrestling stuff, you
right.
didn't have a choice. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You're walking out in front of a room full of strangers, and
Mhm.
you got on spandex,
Right.
and you have to fight and talk and do all this stuff in front of people you've never met in your life, and
Right.
create a connection with them. And so once you do that for a while, then your confidence, it boosts, it builds, you
Right.
know what I mean? And it just helps people's morale, and you see them grow up, and it's really, really a cool thing, man. Because I mean, we've got a 16-year-old kid, we got a 15-year-old kid, who parents had to sign waivers, but
Right.
we have as young as 15, and then we have as old as, oh man, 46, 47, which is kind of
Really?
older to start
Woo.
chasing your dream.
They just
But
just
hey,
starting.
just starting. But nothing's
Wow.
impossible. You know what I mean? So, especially in the wrestling business, because somebody could look at them and go, I could do something with them, and
Right.
then snatch them up and boom, put them under a contract, and then hey, one of my kids graduated. So it's awesome, man. It's really cool.
When I think about wrestling, you see kids out in the yards doing different things, wrestling and stuff like that. And sometimes you see folks on Facebook or even on YouTube. They doing stuff, and they doing stuff that they ain't been trained to do, and some of them end up getting hurt. So
Yep.
I would say if a person wants to do that, they need to get in contact with somebody that will train them right and teach them how to fall if they got. You're gonna fall. You're gonna get
Absolutely.
slammed sometimes, and teach you how to act and react in those situations, so they don't end up getting severely hurt. Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, honestly, and it takes about a half an inch.
Mhm.
If you're off a half an inch on something, you go from it being perfect to you're on your way to the hospital. I mean,
Right.
it's serious, and it's the small stuff that you would think that, you see these guys do these stupid flips off the top rope and all this stuff, and it's
Mhm.
crazy. That's not the stuff they get hurt on.
Right.
Something real minute because you put your foot in the wrong place, or you put your hands down early when you were trying to fall, and next
Mhm.
thing you know, you blew out your elbow or your shoulder, or you broke your fingers,
Mhm.
things like that. Um, it, and that's stuff that if you're not being trained by the right person, they don't show you these type things. They
Right.
show you the cool moves. They go, hey, jump off the top rope and do this.
Yeah.
And it's your second day in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, second day in with us,
Mhm.
you're not even touching the top rope. I
Right.
mean, you're gonna learn
Yeah.
how to wrestle first.
Yeah. That ain't nothing to play with. Uh,
No, sir.
what are some of the injuries that you sustained when you was wrestling?
So I've had, I think, two broken noses. I know one of them was when I was training by one of my best friends. Uh, two broken noses. Both of my shoulders have been separated.
Wow.
Um, this knuckle on my ring finger on my right hand is broken, from punching, and the guy moved and I hit the mat and it jammed into my own hand. I broke my own
Wow.
finger.
Wow.
Um, and then I had a guy who, yeah, I've got a scar here, which you probably can't see, but his thumbnail went through my face
Right.
and up, and then like the rest of his, like two fingers went to my eye. And
Wow.
so there was some of that fake blood, by the way, that came out of there. And then I fake punched him right in the nose for doing it too. So, uh, but yeah, those are really, I mean, the shoulders and the nose has been the bad stuff, and the shoulders have just been, I got hit so hard that when I went to fall, I fell improperly and jammed my shoulder and it popped, and I got them both separated over the last 25 years. So, which I mean, the stuff I go to like chiropractor for isn't like a specific incident,
Right.
but it's wear and tear over 25 years of doing this.
Mhm.
Um, so like my neck all jacked up, so
Right.
it doesn't have the natural curve it's supposed to have. So I go once a month now because they got the pain under control. So now I go once a month, kind of just in maintenance phase, I guess. So it's there, man. But injuries, I've seen a bunch bad ones. Um, I actually was in a match when a guy passed away one time. So I mean, it's 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 something else. There injuries definitely happen all the time. That's why it is very key, like you said, get trained by the right people, go to the right facility, the right school.
So when you get a shoulder separation, it took a while to get back into shape after that, didn't it?
I think I missed 1 week.
One
Um,
week.
yeah, I was wrestling on TV, and it was my left shoulder was the first one, and it happened at the where was it? Oh, it was at the New Daisy Theater downtown. We had a wrestling match that night, and this guy that I wrestled looked like the Incredible Hulk, man. He's just gigantic guy, and he hit me with a clothesline and hit me so hard it spun me, and I went shoulder first into the mat,
Right.
and it popped, and that was on a Friday night, and so then I showed up at uh, no, that was on a Saturday night. So the following Saturday, I showed up at TV with an arm in a sling, and
Right.
then the week after that, I was back wrestling. So
Wow.
I shouldn't have been. I should not have been, but I was.
Everything just the drive just wouldn't let you sit down and rest, huh?
When that you're so scared of losing your spot. When
Ah,
you feel like you've earned a spot on the show,
right,
um, and you don't want to sit on the sidelines. Kind of, I mean, I guess like football. If you're the starting quarterback, you
right,
don't want to sit out because the dude sitting on the bench for the last 3 years
right,
could walk in and steal your spot, like a Tom Brady or somebody like that.
right.
So it can happen. So you try to keep running. I mean, we wrestle hurt, but it sometimes when you wrestle injured, that's when you have to pump the brakes a little bit.
Right. Now, wrestling, we know it's entertainment,
Yeah,
but it takes a lot of physical training, I imagine, getting your endurance up where you can, because there ain't no, it ain't like boxing. You wrestle, you box for 3 minutes, then you get a break. Wrestling is to
right.
the end. So,
Yeah,
and I hadn't thought about that really when you until you said earlier that it's not like football. Your football season over, basketball season over. Wrestling is 52 months out the year, so you constantly training. You don't get those breaks. You don't get that time to rest. You don't get that time to let your body heal. You're just constantly going. So I imagine
right.
that's pretty tough.
It's very tough at first for sure. When I was when I was first starting out, I had one of the wrestlers, we were training partners, and we
Mm-hmm.
lifted weights and went to the gym and did cardio and all that stuff 6 days a week. And on top of training, in the wrestling ring,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we were so determined to make it. And
Mm-hmm.
that making it is objective or subjective to everybody's opinion of making it is different. But
Right.
we really wanted to be on WWE at some point and wrestle for them because that's the biggest company in the world.
Right.
Because I mean we made it on Memphis television. That was also a dream, of course. So we were like, hey man, we're young, let's do it.
Right.
So 6 days a week we're lifting weights, doing cardio, I mean, sitting in the sauna, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
took, everything we could think of just to give us an edge over everybody else. Because it's really like every time you go out, it's like a tryout, it's like a casting call.
Right.
If you have Dr. B's professional wrestling company
Right.
and you see some guy walk out who looks like $1 million and then,
Right.
he carries himself like, a star and people are just naturally they gravitate towards him,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be interested in that guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So every time we got in front of the cameras, we wanted to, be in the best shape we could be in. We wanted to, our matches, we wanted to look like it, be athletes.
Right.
So it takes a lot of physical training. So like, and when we're training people now, we do this, it's not, I wouldn't say it's long, but we do like 8 to 10 rounds of this warm up, which involves squats and push ups and doing planks and jumping jacks, and because you want to get your body at least warmed up. You don't want to go in there
Right.
and tear your quad or something like that, because then you're sitting on the shelf for 6 to 9 months,
Right.
and that really just that slows everything down for you. But yeah, it's a whole lot of physical training, and back when I was doing it like full time, basically
Hmm.
diet, I mean everything, fake tanning, whatever it took. You wanted to look like
Right.
a movie star when you walked out
Right.
there. So we did everything, man.
Yeah. When I look at the poster behind you, it looks like you mean as can be, boy. You want to tear somebody up. Ah,
Yeah,
so so how long was the guy Barry your tag team partner?
we we tagged up for, man, I don't know. We're both. I'm a little older than him,
Hmm.
and when that promotion went out of business, he lives in Missouri,
Okay.
so we would kind of have to meet up at the events and stuff. So
Right.
we don't get to wrestle a lot together anymore because that company went out of business, and he's kind of gone off doing his thing, and I'm doing my
Hmm.
thing.
Right.
Um, but we tagged up for, I don't know, 3 4 years, like running and gunning pretty hard.
Right.
We were the tag team champions. Yeah, the little picture below, right above my head, we're holding the tag titles. Um,
Wow.
but we were the two-time champions of that company.
Hmm.
Uh, and I mean, we traveled around doing a bunch of stuff together. And he's just like I said, that's I call him Cuz. That's my Cuz, and he's one of the best guys I've ever met in the wrestling business, man. He's a good
Hmm.
dude.
That's awesome. That's pretty awesome. Let me ask you this. Okay, who was your toughest and favorite opponent?
I'd have to say, like, as far as toughest, I've had these long feuds with a few guys in this area.
Hmm.
Um, Derek King, which is the other head trainer at the wrestling
Hmm.
school,
Hmm.
he and I have probably hit each other harder and more than anybody I've ever met in my life. Uh, I was the villain. I beat him up. I beat up his uncle. I beat up, I mean, anybody who I could get an advantage on, uh, of him, get advantage on him by taking out or whatever I had to do. We fought for years, basically, and we're
Right.
great friends. We're great friends. But when we go and show up at a wrestling event and it says Alan Steele versus Derek King, we already know, well, this is going to be physical. So let me go ahead and start warming up now, because he's
Right.
going to hit me really hard and I'm going to hit him really hard, and we'll see who wins this thing. And there's also a guy named Poker Face Williams, Quentin Poker Face Williams,
Right.
who's around this area too, which is funny. Him and I went to high school together, never knew each other, and
Wow.
until we met in the wrestling ring. But he is a tough son of a gun, man.
Really.
He can knock a tooth loose, or make your nose crooked real easy. But those two in this area are probably a couple of the toughest guys. And then as far as like with my tag partner, we wrestled. I don't know if you remember Wolfie D from PG-13 back in the day,
Hmm.
but he formed a tag team in that same company called the Hounds of Hell, and it was him and this guy named Roosevelt, and we had a real physical bunch of matches, fights basically. I mean, we were putting people through tables, and they hung me with a chain.
What?
They beat, yeah, man, they beat up my manager, and so then we beat up their manager, and then I put their manager through a table. Um, we
Now these
we
real tables, right?
Oh, it's like those. I know you preach and stuff. Those 6 or 8 foot long wooden tables that a lot of churches have.
Right.
That's what we are. That's what we go through.
What? Ooh.
Yeah.
They
And
would send you to the
I guess
chiropractor.
it depends on. the quality of the wood. I've seen people skip off of them like rocks, and I've seen I've seen people go through them, like a hot knife through butter.
Right.
So no, those tables are 100% legit, man.
Wow. It's something. It's, sometimes you see that and it's like, how did they get some of them get thrown over the ropes and hit tables? How do you get up from that? That got to hurt.
Oh, it absolutely hurts. You have to. I mean, that when it boils down to it, the show must go on.
Right.
So you got to get up. I mean, your other choice is to lay out there and lose the match. Those are going to get counted out. So you either get your butt up
Or
or you lose. So
they call you a wuss.
yeah, you dig the
Yeah.
splinters out.
Ooh, man. So basically, no matter how much pain you in, you still got to get up and just keep going.
Unless you get injured, like if you
Right.
snap your leg or something,
Mhm.
during the middle of a match, the expectation
Right.
is to go to the bell.
Hmm.
The expectation is to finish. If you started the match, you finish the match.
Right.
Now, like I said, if you get injured, like Sid Vicious
Right.
on WCW one time jumped off and kicked Scott Steiner in the chest, and
Hmm.
when he landed, his foot that planted on the mat, his tibia fibia and his shin snapped, and it was laying
Wow.
sideways. It was kind of like the Joe Theismann injury back in the day.
Right.
I think the bone was sticking out, and Sid just sitting on the mat screaming and grabbing his leg, and they had to stop the match basically. I think
Wow.
Scott Steiner pinned him and got out of there, and I don't think Sid Vicious tried to kick out because he wanted to get out of the ring. Uh,
But he went on.
so
He went on to the point of pinning the dude.
he pinned him. He kicked him. I remembered he kicked him and then realized that his leg was bent in half, and then he pinned him and got the heck out of Dodge and ran to the back. I think so. But yeah, that was on national television, man. That was on like
Wow.
TBS or something.
Wow. That's something. Yeah. Just the thought of the pain and the injuries. Let me ask you this: do you still wrestle, or are you just training? Or are you just coaching? Or
I train people a lot
Mhm.
more than I wrestle myself now. Um, Now that I've been doing it so long, I'm kind of picky of who I wrestle for,
Right.
uh, where I wrestle, that type of thing. When I first started, you could have put a wrestling ring in your backyard and I would have shown up and been
Really?
ready to go. We've wrestled. I mean, car lots, uh, parking lots. Uh, I mean, at the fair, anywhere. Me and Derek talk about this a lot. If you set up a ring and
Hmm.
advertise that it was going to be a show,
Right.
him and I were going to be there. We were going to
Right.
find out how to get there, and we were going to show up. We've done so many shows in one day before that by the time we got to the last one, we pulled up to the building, walked in the locker room, and our music was playing, and we walked straight through the curtain and to the ring to have the
Wow.
match. And then got done, came back there, cleaned up, whatever, got in the car and drove back home. Uh,
Wow.
but that was like I think the third wrestling show in a row that day. I mean, it
And
was
that
here.
three different ones in one day in three different locations.
Yeah, we'd wrestle that morning on TV, do something in the afternoon, and then go hit something at night, and then turn around probably wrestle. Depending on when this was, we used to wrestle on Sundays in Gibson, Tennessee. So we would get up the next morning and go right back out, and go do it again, and then be dead dog tired Sunday night, But it's an addiction, like I said, man. You want to do it.
So was that at that time? Was that your main source of income?
Well, no. Um, I I've always been real leery about that as far as I want to make sure I could provide for my family. And even if it was just me,
Hmm.
I never wanted to put myself in a situation to where I couldn't keep the lights on. or I had nothing in the refrigerator, or
Mm.
I've always had a dog. I couldn't take care of my dog. I refused to put myself in that scenario.
Right.
So me personally, I always worked some kind of side job during
Right.
the week. That way, because there's a lot of promoters that'll tell you over the phone, or now everything's social media and inbox messages and stuff, that hey, I want you to come wrestle for me. I'll pay you
Right.
this much. And then you get there and that much ain't there. You know what I mean? So
Right.
then you get half of your money or whatever, and so then, I mean, what are you gonna do? You gonna beat them up, get arrested for beating up the
Right.
promoter, or are you gonna take what you got and go home, and just not go work for that guy anymore?
Right.
And so that's what I would do. But to offset that, and because I was always, spending money on other stuff, I always
Hmm.
had some kind of job to generate other income as well. So
Right.
I wrestled, and I worked a regular job, punching a clock, you know, 40 hours a week sometimes, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how busy I was with the wrestling and stuff. Um, so yeah, it just depends. Some guys are fortunate enough to where I guess they don't have as much responsibility, and they can just
Hmm.
travel around and just, live that wrestling life 100% of the time. And
Right.
I could have, I really could have,
Hmm.
but I just, I don't like to be uncomfortable. I want to be able to afford everything I want and need.
Right. Let me ask you this. Okay. So do they just have the wrestling mostly on the weekends, or is it all during the week also?
Both, um, mainly on the weekends, as far as what we call independent wrestling,
Hmm.
which is pretty much anything besides WWE and
Hmm.
AEW right now, as far as in the states,
Hmm.
and those are pretty much weekend events,
Right.
and that's because the fans who are going to buy the tickets are working during the week.
Right.
So if like when WWE comes to town, they come to town now. It's on either Monday or on Friday, but they only come to town, once, maybe twice a year.
Right.
These smaller towns that run that
Hmm.
town every weekend of the year, the people in the town, or and the surrounding, suburbs or whatever, who are going to travel to come see the wrestling,
Hmm.
they got kids that they can't keep out too late, or they got to
Right.
get up in the morning, they got to go to work, or whatever the scenario is.
Hmm.
But it's just harder to get in a good amount of people to watch during the week. A lot harder than on the weekend. Um, Friday nights are good unless it's peak high school sports season.
Hmm.
And so then, of course, the parents are going to go watch the kids play football or basketball or whatever the case may be.
Right.
They're going to go do that before they come watch us wrestle. So
Hmm.
Saturday nights are really like the the best night, it seems like. Some people, the wrestling show that's on in Memphis on television, they do all their TV tapings on Sunday afternoons.
Hmm.
So people are, now that kind of everything's calmed down a little bit with the COVID or whatnot, at least somewhat,
Right.
and people are going back to churches physically and everything,
Hmm.
then they can get out of church and they go watch people fight. So you know
Ah!
they can they can get their blessings and then go watch somebody get bloodied up. So they get like a whole package in one day.
Pray for their favorite wrestler.
There you go.
Ah!
Yeah.
Wow. So, when you wrestling, and have you ever had where it turns into a real fight, and you would
Yeah.
go beyond just the wrestling match,
A
where
time
you
or
want
two.
to take the head off?
Yeah. There's been a couple times, and it doesn't last very long because both parties know that there's an audience there,
Right.
and the audience doesn't care if you're mad at this guy for real,
Right.
or if you're trying to entertain them or whatever the case may be. So I've had a time or two where Yeah, I've gotten like hit real hard, or like I said, the guy that stuck his thumb in my face. Um, and he's one of my buddies, but we fought real hard for about 3, 4 minutes after that. And I was hitting him with everything I could get my hands on. So yeah, there's been a few times where guys kind of, I don't know, they ate their Wheaties that day and they wanted to try you or whatever the case
Right.
is, and you either have to get their attention with a good shot, like a good
Mhm.
punch or elbow or something, or you take them down on the mat. And if you're the better wrestler, you hold them there until they calm down, and then you can finish, the wrestling match.
Mhm.
But then, like I said, if they're professionals, it may flare up a little bit, but it's probably going to be behind the curtain after
Mhm.
they go to the back. The first guy through the curtain is usually standing about 3 feet away, waiting on the second guy to peek his head through and going to try to knock him cold as soon as he comes through that curtain. Or
Wow.
they'll tell you to go out back or whatever. But it has happened, not too many times,
Mhm.
but once or twice, and you know, it like I said, it doesn't last very long.
So normally you can go out and hang out and have a beer afterwards together and talk about I got you and I gave you that lick and
There's a
you
lot
hit
of that.
you hit me too hard.
Yeah. Now I've never myself. I'm not a drinker, or nothing like that, and I've never gotten into the bar scene and stuff. So I'm like the oddball when it comes to
Mhm.
being a pro wrestler. Um, I show up to the building, have my match, and I go home. A lot of times stop at, Waffle House is the restaurant of choice for pro wrestlers,
Right,
because there's one everywhere.
right.
So no matter where you're traveling, and they're open 24 hours a day, you can get out of the ring and still have something, a decent meal before you go home. Uh, but I would wrestle, clean up, stop, grab something to eat, and then head on to the house. But I've got a lot of buddies who really enjoy that nightlife. And so they would go to clubs or bars, and there's some stories of, them getting in there and cleaning out the bar, starting like having a bigger match at the bar than they did at the
Right.
arena that night. But yeah, there's a lot of wrestlers really enjoy the adult beverages, that's for sure.
So is there a lot of groupies that follow the wrestlers and try to get close to them?
Oh yeah, there definitely is that. And I mean, depending on who you are, it's funny because I remember as a kid when WCW came to Memphis, and they were the number two company at the time. Well, actually, this might have been while they were the number one company. Um, but they were at the Mid South Coliseum still, so that was some years ago.
Right.
And I remember when the show was over, I went around back because I was a fan. I wanted to, see who I could see getting in their car and going home or whatever. And I saw some of the most attractive women dressed up like they were going to like a fancy show or something. I mean,
Really?
night gowns, but really like fancy dresses, and not
Right.
like jeans and t-shirts. You know what I mean? They had on heels. They were ready. They were getting ready for a date. And like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and all them guys came out the back door, and those women were like, wait. And it was so funny. And I can't remember who it was, but just looked at one of them and pointed like, you're mine for the evening. And boom, she went, jumped in the car and followed them wherever they got in a limo and followed the limo. And I don't know where they went after that, but
Right.
it is, there are groupies like in music and, all kind of entertainment, uh, but there's levels. I can tell you that because those, like the ones at the WCW were way up here, and the ones that some of the places I've been, not so much. So, but I mean, yeah, there's definitely that, and there's a lot of just people that want to get to know you and that type of thing. But there are there are benefits of being a professional wrestler, that's for sure.
So if a person isn't careful or they're not grounded, I'll say that way, they could in their marriage they could destroy a marriage
Oh man,
from being in that profession.
absolutely. Um, without naming names, I've had some personal friends that I've seen their relationships fall apart because of
Right.
the temptations and stuff that are out there. Um, because I mean, they just, I guess you couldn't say no. But yeah, it's out there. There are temptations, and you just you got to make the choice. And like
Right.
if you're married or whatever the case may be, or at least committed to another partner of your choice, then uh, and that's the risk that you take. And that's another reason, honestly, that I really never got involved with some of that after uh, hours stuff. After the show was over, I wanted to go home. I always was and still am in a committed relationship, and so I was like, I don't even want to be around it,
Right.
because even if nothing were to go down, a rumor could be started, and then
Right.
could cause me problems at home.
Right.
So if I go home, I know that rumor's not true,
Right.
you know. So, but yeah, no, it's happened, man. And then on the other hand, too, there have been some people who have fallen head over heels for somebody that they met who they thought was going to be a groupie, and next thing you know, they're married. Have the white picket fence, 2 kids, a dog. You know what I mean? So like
Right.
they just found them there. So
Right.
yeah, well, but it happens, that's for sure.
So, I guess wrestling is just like anything else. There's good, bad, and ugly. There's good situations, bad situations. There's things that can be said happened that never happened, and so it's just if a person's going to decide to be a professional wrestler, they need to make sure that they got their head on straight.
Oh man, absolutely. Um, it looks like it's nonstop fun. It looks like it's the most exciting thrill ride of your life, and it can be, but you
Hmm.
got to be mature about it. You know,
Hmm.
um, there's all kinds of factors. There's all kinds of things that get in the way, cause issues. I feel like I'm sliding out of my chair. But um, yeah, you got to have your head on right. And for people that want to get into wrestling, I um, I recommend it. Go after it. Really be committed to it, but always have a backup plan. You know what I mean? Because just because you train to wrestle doesn't mean you're going to make a career out of it. Just
Right.
like if you could be a heck of a basketball player, that doesn't mean you're going to go play for Chicago Bulls next year.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, definitely, grow up, be mature, be an adult. And now, especially these days, it's like, and I don't want to say it's because it's a PC culture or whatever, but it was more of a Wild West atmosphere 25 years ago when I started than it is now. It's
Right.
it's not near as drama filled and with just some of the craziness that goes on. It's definitely like I think a lot of that stuff is toned down quite a bit.
It's interesting to talk. I've been waiting on this ever since we discussed you coming on. I've been waiting for this because there you don't always you get to see wrestling, you get to see wrestlers, but you don't always get to get into a real conversation like we having today. Uh,
Right, right.
Let me ask you this: you had said about the different companies. So it's a lot of companies that wrestlers can get tied into in different states. Then, right?
Oh, yes, sir. There's probably wrestling in every state in the United States. Seriously. Um, in just Tennessee. I mean, there's in Memphis. All right, we'll just make this. This will blow your mind probably. In Memphis, there's at least 5 different companies
In Memphis
just in
alone?
Memphis, in
Wow.
just Memphis. Um, I when I was just starting out,
Hmm.
we would go to like Corinth, Mississippi, Savannah, Tennessee, Dyersburg, Tennessee. Um, what else is up? Union City, Ripley, Brighton, Covington. And like all you go straight up Highway 51 and you could stop in and wrestle at a bunch of places. Uh,
Hmm.
and a lot of them were the same company, but in like Dyersburg at one point there was like I think 4 different promotions. And Dyersburg, isn't
In
near the size of
Dyersburg?
yeah.
Wow.
and near the size of Memphis. So, but there's companies everywhere because you can. A lot of people start their own company. You know, they buy a ring, get a building, get all the lights and whatever they want to, however they want to make their show look,
Hmm.
and then they start trying to book people. And
Right.
but the difference is working for somebody who's been there, done that. Is once you get there, it's night and day. You'll see like, okay, just because this is a has a ring and a building, really doesn't make it professional wrestling. This is
Right.
more like backyard wrestling inside of a building. But there's tons, man. If you wanted to live in your car, you can and just go watch wrestling. You can get in your car and you could probably find something almost every day of the week. Is
Wow.
drive into the United States and watch wrestling. Oh, it froze up, I think.
Yeah. I guess it got upset at you. It's coming back. Um, but okay, then I guess we'll get ready to close it out here in a minute. I ask one or two more questions. Um, Say if you get injured while you're wrestling, do they have insurance for you, or do you have to have your own insurance? How does that work? Can you hear me?
It's,
Can you hear me? I guess this is going to be it. I guess we'll just call, call it call it a day. And uh, looks like we've lost his a lot of his video is fading. So we're gonna call this. Can you hear me? You still there? Guess you can't hear me. So we're gonna call it a day. We want to thank you, Alan, for tuning in. I guess you have to go back and listen to the the video on this for the ending. But we want to thank you for tuning in,
yep.
being part of it, and uh, being that your audios fade out again. We'll uh, see you soon, and hopefully we can get you back on again, and maybe get some other wrestlers with you, and do another one. You have a good day, you all. Thank you all for tuning in.